Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Board of County Commissioners of Boulder County. It is Thursday, December 20th, 2012. Commissioners Tour, Gardner, and Domenico are present, and we are here for a presentation from our Commissioner's Office, County Attorney's Office, and we want to thank you all for being here today. We know it's tough timing in terms of the holidays, but there is a need to at least begin the discussion of this document. So we welcome you to our public hearing today. And this is in regard to the intergovernmental agreement proposal with the Denver Water Board of Commissioners for the Moffat Collection System Project. And we'll start off today with a presentation from staff. When that's completed, I think the board may have some questions for staff, so we'll have staff entertain those. And then we'll move on to the public hearing. And I know there's a sign-up sheet out in the hallway, so hopefully you've signed up. And just a reminder to everybody, we do work with a 3-minute time frame for you when you're speaking, and I'll tell you more about that when we get there. But for now, we'll start off with a presentation of staff materials, so we'll turn to Conrad Lattis for that purpose.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Conrad Lattis from the County Attorney's Office. I was not going to be the one giving this presentation, but unfortunately, your deputy had to be out of town. So I'm going to give you a short description of the project that Denver Water has proposed and the project's current status, followed by a review of Boulder County's involvement and input to date. And then finally, I'm going to describe some of the terms of the draft intergovernmental agreement that Boulder County staff has negotiated with Denver Water. And as you mentioned, there are a number of county staff here who have worked on this, and there are several members of the Denver Water staff as well. If you have questions for them, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them. To meet Denver Water's projected future water needs, Denver Water has proposed to expand the Gross Reservoir from its current size of approximately 41,000 acre-feet of storage to approximately 113,800 acre-feet of water, or about 118,000, including an additional environmental pool that was developed for the benefit of the cities of Lafayette and the city of Boulder. The project would increase the height of the dam from 340 feet to 471 feet, and it would inundate an additional 450 acres of what is now forested land. This proposal was first brought to Boulder County's attention about 10 years ago. And if the project is to be constructed, it will take there will be about a 2-year planning period, and then it will be about 4 or 5 years to construct the project. In order to construct this project, Denver Water needs several federal approvals. It needs a permit under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act from the Corps of Engineers, and it needs to amend its current license with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. And in the federal process, the Corps is what is known as the lead agency, and they are conducting an environmental impact assessment, an environmental impact statement for the project. And FERC is a cooperating agency. The draft environmental impact assessment, or EIS, was issued by the Corps in October of 2009, and it selects the project that I just talked about as the preferred alternative. The final EIS is projected to be released in the next several months, sometime probably in the first half of 2013. Shortly after release of the final EIS, there would be a record of decision listing the final conditions that Denver Water has to satisfy in order to proceed. Then Denver Water will also have to submit its FERC relicensing application. Denver Water has entered into a comprehensive IGA, or intergovernmental agreement, with West Slope interests, which cover issues related to the water that will be diverted from Colorado River tributaries, and an IGA with the City of Boulder and the City of Lafayette, by which Denver Water agreed to build the dam 5 feet higher in order to provide for additional, an environmental pool is what it's called, so that additional water can be stored in the dam that can be released to South Boulder Creek to enhance flows for environmental purposes. Boulder County's first formal comments about the project were in November of 2003, when the county responded to an Army Corps of Engineers request for comments upon the scoping of the EIS. In those comments, Boulder County requested that the project include incorporation of flood storage and expressed concerns about protecting existing water rights, in-stream flows, and riparian and other wildlife habitat. Boulder County in those comments and since then has consistently expressed a desire that there be no net increase in the recreational opportunities associated with the reservoir after expansion, and stated that it would be reviewing any proposal for expansion under its land use code. In September of 2008, so 5 years later, the county submitted additional comments during the pre-application document review period. The topics addressed in these comments included the necessity of notifying property owners within a quarter mile of all travel routes, and Boulder County requested consideration of compensation for the 400-plus acres of habitat that would be inundated, and expressed concerns about the transportation impacts of the project. It also asked for a better explanation as to the demand for the project and how the aggregate needed for the concrete would be sourced and delivered to the site. In March of 2010, after the draft EIS was released, Boulder County submitted 21 pages of comments related to the draft EIS. In those comments, the county argued that the EIS did not adequately address the need for the project, and the Denver Water should have placed greater emphasis on meeting anticipated water supply shortfalls through conservation. The county objected to the impacts of sprawl that would be facilitated by this project and noted that the environmental and wildlife problems that would be caused by dewatering the West Slope, noting that this project would cause up to 30% diminution in flows of the tributaries of the Fraser and Williams Fork rivers. As noted earlier, Denver Water has entered into an IGA with the West Slope interest to resolve and or mitigate many of these impacts. In its comments, Boulder County also noted that the mitigation plans in the draft EIS were only conceptual and expressed concern about the impacts of transportation, construction, traffic, and light, noise, and dust pollution created from the project, the construction of the project. The county requested that mitigation plans for the environment and transportation and construction impacts be acceptable to the stakeholders and with binding obligations with monitoring and enforcement. The county submitted additional comments to the Colorado Wildlife Commission in February of 2011 related to the draft Fish and Wildlife Mitigation Plan and draft Fish and Wildlife Enhancement Plan proposed by Denver Water. Boulder County expressed its opinion that the plans lack specificity and scope and asked for greater protection of Colorado's fish and wildlife resources, including increased environmental flows below the dam, compensation with protection of substitute lands in exchange for lost acreage. So the environmental flows have largely been taken care of for the South Boulder Creek Basin, have been taken care of in the IGA by the City of Boulder and Lafayette. So Boulder County's processes. Boulder County held a public hearing on this matter in September of 2011, in which the commissioners solicited input from the public about their concerns about the project and about project impacts and their suggestions for how to mitigate these impacts. The conditions in the IGA were negotiated in order to attempt to respond to these concerns raised by the public at that hearing and since that hearing. Boulder County's normal process for a project such as this would be to analyze it under Article 8 of the Boulder County Land Use Code, which is related to areas and activities of statewide interest and has been enacted under the authority of House Bill 1041, and they're known as 1041 regulations. Since 2008, Denver Water has asserted that because of federal preemption under the Federal Power Act associated with the FERC relicensing, it is exempt from having to comply with Article 8 of our Land Use Code. Boulder County does not agree with that assessment, and we have not conceded that point. However, rather than having extensive litigation on this point, Boulder County has engaged in a process of negotiation with Denver Water to see whether the factors that it could consider under Article 8 of the Land Use Code could be met through a negotiated intergovernmental agreement. The possibility of an IGA with Denver Water was first mentioned in Boulder County's comments to Denver Water in 2008. And it was also mentioned in the memo that was distributed to the public in advance of the September 2011 public hearing. Although negotiations with Denver Water have not always been easy, in part because we continue to disagree about the applicability of Article 8 in the absence of an IGA, the draft IGA that you have before you is the best set of conditions that staff has been able to negotiate on behalf of Boulder County in order to mitigate impacts from the project, and staff believes that it is in Boulder County's interest to agree to this IGA as drafted. In negotiating the IGA, staff has closely considered the purposes of Article 8 of the Land Use Code and the review under Article 8, and feels that the negotiated agreement, together with the mitigation required by the EIS, Section 404 permit, and the FERC license, address the intent of those regulations and allow the county to examine the same factors that it could have considered under a 1041 review. The IGA also allowed us to effectively design mitigation measures which may not have been achievable through the review process under the Land Use Code, because Boulder County would have been limited to assessing only the impacts within Boulder County and would have had much less flexibility in imposing conditions for monetary payments. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the terms of the IGA. The IGA is a conditional agreement not to oppose the project. If you approve the IGA, it will be Boulder County's agreement that it won't oppose the construction and operation of the project as set forth in the preferred alternative, as the preferred alternative in the draft EIS. This consent, however, is predicated on the project being constructed and operated as described. Any material changes to the project would require notification to Boulder County, and Boulder County would have the right to raise these objections to the Corps. The IGA includes mitigation measures that are in addition to those incorporated in the EIS, the Section 404 permit, and the FERC license, and which address the specific local impacts of the project. So these local measures, one of the primary concerns that has been expressed is construction traffic and noise related to that traffic and at the construction site itself. In order to address the impacts of the projected truck traffic and other vehicle traffic to and from the dam, Denver Water has agreed to limit traffic during morning and evening rush hours and at night to keep trucks off Flagstaff Road and Crescent Park Drive. There will be, under the IGA, there will be no truck traffic between the hours of 7:30 and 9 a.m. or between 4:30 and 6 p.m. And there will be no truck traffic at all between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Denver Water believes that with these limitations, it will be able to complete the mass concrete placement, which is the most extensive impact to the roads and for noise both on the roads and at the construction site. That Denver Water believes it will be able to do that in 2 summers rather than more. But they believe that if there were further restrictions on hours of operation and hours of trucking, that it would require this mass concrete placement to extend into a 3rd summer. One of the other things we negotiated is that 75% of the workers who are going to be working at the site will have to be shuttled to and from the work site to decrease the commuter traffic. Denver Water will be required to provide dust mitigation and maintenance on gravel roads within Boulder County. And once the project is complete, we'll return the roads to their pre-construction condition. And this and other provisions will be monitored and enforced by Boulder County Transportation Department. Pullouts on State Highway 72 will be improved, and affected county roads during during the construction period will be maintained by Denver Water, and they will have to bring these roads back into pre-construction condition upon the end of the construction. Denver Water and its contractors will have to use clean burning diesel fuel as for all of their work on the project in their trucks. Noise associated with the project from both trucks and at the construction site will be mitigated using the best available technologies, including limits on timing certain activities when they can occur and limiting the use of engine braking. In addition, Denver Water will contribute a minimum of $500,000 to Boulder County to provide compensation to residents affected by project noise. Blasting and noisy machinery may only be used during daylight hours. And if Denver Water believes it can't finish the mass concrete placement within 2 summers under these conditions, it can extend the hours of these noisier activities upon the payment of additional noise mitigation funds up to $2 million additional dollars. Our analysis is that the noise standards and regulations in this IGA are the same that they would have been had this proceeded through a 1041 review. The other large component of the local mitigation measures is land conservation. Because the project will inundate more than 450 acres of forested land and change the nature of recreation in the area around Gross Reservoir, Denver Water has agreed to assist Boulder County with the preservation of land in the general vicinity of the reservoir by contributing $4 million towards preservation of land within or near Denver Water's watershed. The first priority of both Boulder County and Denver Water in this regard would be to try to work on the conservation of the toll property, which is a 4,728 acre property that is upstream of the project site in Gilpin County, and it has been designated by the U.S. Forest Service as its #1 national priority forest legacy project. It is the largest contiguous holding of private land in this part of Colorado. This conservation project holds great promise, but it's not known whether Boulder County, Denver Water, and other partners will be able to make the transaction work. So if the toll property cannot be preserved, Denver Water's $4 million will be held in an escrow account and will be spent on other suitable lands with a preference towards the South Boulder Creek watershed. Denver Water will also contribute an additional $2 million to assist Boulder County in its desire to limit urban and suburban sprawl in the unincorporated Boulder County and Jefferson County area. These funds can be used to preserve open space. However, the county can also use all or a portion of these funds to compensate residents affected by project noise. Details of how this money will be expended can be worked out in the future between Boulder County and your constituents. Another feature of this IGA is that we have a commitment from Denver Water to work in good faith with Boulder County to establish trail connections through the Denver Water's property, both at Gross Reservoir to connect up regional trails that might involve Walker Ranch, the county's Walker Ranch open space property, and also down on the plains between the area of the Rocky Flats Wildlife Refuge and the City of Boulder's open space in the vicinity of El Dorado Springs. Denver Water, through this IGA, will also contribute $500,000 to the county to use for forest treatment projects on private land in Boulder County and located within the Denver Water watershed, so South Boulder Creek watershed. Finally, and in addition, Denver Water will contribute $1 million to assist the Coal Creek Canyon Parks and Recreation District with accomplishing the goals of its master plan, and will contribute $250,000 to Boulder County to use towards recreation projects recommended by the group Preserve Unique Magnolia Association. And one other item that is not required of Denver Water in the absence of this IGA would be that Denver Water has agreed that Boulder County can be consulted upon and has to approve the final tree removal plan, which will specify the methods for removal and disposal of trees within the inundation area. And that removal plan has to be part of its FERC license, but in the FERC license, we don't get a say, but we get a say as part of this IGA. Boulder County would have the ability to visit the site for monitoring and enforcement of the conditions of the IGA. The IGA will not affect any rights that other interest groups or individuals may have if they believe that they have claims against Denver Water. So just this IGA is really only in lieu of the county's review, and it doesn't take anybody else's rights away from them. So in working through the negotiations with the Denver Water Board on this IGA, staff was cognizant of trying to address the concerns that were expressed by the public and to work to provide more extensive mitigation than would have been provided by processing this through an application under the Land Use Code. We feel that this IGA accomplishes that goal and that the IGA satisfies the purposes and intent of Article 8. A benefit of entering into this IGA rather than imposing conditions through the land use application is that Boulder County gets certainty about the conditions of approval and does not have to worry about challenges either to its authority to regulate the project or whether the conditions of approval will be challenged and are permissible. The Denver Water Board voted unanimously to approve the IGA at its meeting yesterday. Staff recommends that you table the discussion after the public testimony this evening and reopen the hearing on January 7th and ultimately approve the IGA as drafted and as it has been signed by Denver Water. Or, in the alternative, you could just blow this whole thing off and assume that the world will end tomorrow.
That's right. It is the 21st.
So we do have staff here, and we can answer questions if you have them before the public testimony begins.
Okay. Thanks, Conrad, for the explanation. Any questions from the board of staff?
I have a handful of questions.
Okay.
So Denver Water asserts that the FERC license preempts our ability to apply our 1041 regulations. If that were to be litigated, and if Denver Water were to be successful in that, there would still be an area of impact outside of the FERC boundaries. And
yes.
Could you speak to that?
That is an issue that we have looked at, and I can just say that, without waiving our attorney-client privilege here, that if we were to only look at the impacts that were outside the FERC boundary, we don't think there's much that we could regulate, because the FERC boundary includes the dam and most of the area of the current reservoir. And if we were only regulating the few hundred acres that are going to be inundated, I don't think that we could get anywhere near the kind of mitigation that we have negotiated in this IGA.
Second question is, the representatives from the environmental group, or TAG, have submitted a letter in which one of the concerns that they raise is whether there's an ability to enter into a binding IGA with Denver Water, given that this is regulated by FERC, and they point to a case. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I certainly have looked at that case. And in that case, which was from one of the states in the east, I can't remember which one right now, there was a direct conflict between the terms of the contract, in our case as IGA, and the terms of the FERC license. The way we have constructed this IGA, there is no conflict. That all of our provisions are in addition to that the Denver Water is committed to doing all of the things that it said that it would do in its FERC license. And there's an attachment to the IGA that has a list of what some of those commitments are. But that each of these provisions of the IGA are something in addition to that and not in conflict.
Third question, if we decide to not enter into an IGA and instead to require the project to go through a 1041 review,
Mm-hmm.
there's first kind of the threshold of any legal battle that we would have over the applicability. Assuming that we won that legal battle, we would then be reviewing it under the standards within the code, and you've described sort of some of what you think we would be able to do in such a review. Is there any ability under that 1041 review to consider the out-of-county impacts, either the impact on the Upper Colorado watershed or the potential use of the water for urban sprawl in areas beyond Boulder County boundaries?
I don't believe so. I think we would be restricted to looking purely at the impacts within Boulder County.
And then one final question, which I think you would, well, actually, two questions. I think you addressed this one in your comments. But the question of whether the IGA in any way impacts the ability of other parties to pursue litigation. For instance, if there were environmental groups that did not believe that the EIS adequately addressed the impacts in the Upper Colorado watershed, is their ability to pursue legal strategies in any way impacted negatively or positively?
It's not impacted at all. If the EIS that is found by a court to be in violation of NEPA, it doesn't matter how many plaintiffs there are to that lawsuit. It's a legal question, and it's unaffected by your actions.
And then, truly my final question. You laid out the staff recommendation that we approve this IGA, and we'll consider making a decision at the January 7th meeting. But in terms of our options, so that would be one option, to approve it as it has been approved by the Denver Water Board. Second one would be to reject it and at least attempt to require the project to go through 1041 review. And then a third option would be to require other conditions within the IGA, approve a different version, and then essentially send that to Denver Water and ask them to consider an amended version.
And that's certainly a possibility. But
Okay. So we have
we have no idea
whether
what the
they-
Denver
whether or
Water
not-
Board would do about
right.
that, and it reduces some of the certainty.
right, but those are the options that are
Yes.
before us. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions at the moment?
No, I think that's good.
Those were
Thanks, Will.
exact questions. Terrific.
right.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and get set to move through the public hearing. And again, welcome to everybody. There was a sign-up sheet. Hopefully you've signed up. What we'd like to do tonight is, more. Thank you. Start with the pool time. So I know a number of people have signed up for pool time. Sorry, let me organize pieces of paper here. And for those folks who did that, if you have the maximum number of individuals signed up with you, you have 10 minutes. And our lighting system is up here in front. Many of you have probably already experienced this, but just to review it. When you come up to the mic, please give us your name and address so that it is on the record and goes out to our viewing audience, which is probably large out there. Then our timer starts when you start speaking. It's green for the first 2 minutes if you're on a 3-minute cycle. Flashing green at 1 minute left, amber at 30 seconds, and then we'd like to ask you to stop when it's red at 3 minutes, full 3 minutes. It works the same way for the pool time, except you have 10 minutes max. If your group is smaller than 3, it's a slightly different number for you. We'll let you know when we get there. I think we're set to start, so we'll try to give you a heads up as we move through this. We'll start with Anna McDermott and your 3 folks, which are Carla, Jake, and Wayne, if you just raise your hand so that we know you're here. Thank you very much. Okay, great. And then following you will be Greg Ching and his 10 minutes. So, please.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Back again. My name's Anna McDermott. I own 2 properties at the Gross Reservoir North Shore area, and I reside at 1 Lakeshore Park Road. So I'm here today to ask for your help. My mind the last 2 weeks has been absolutely spinning on so many hundreds of data points and concepts and representations, and how can I substantiate or refute them, and we can't cover all of that today. So I'm going to cover 2 key considerations for all of you. One is Boulder's 1041 power, and the other is the proposed IGA document. So I'm just going to say, I think Boulder needs to exercise its 1041 power and stop the proposed Moffat collection system project. The purpose, as we've all agreed, the purpose and the need for the project has not been adequately evaluated, nor have the best alternatives been validated. Impacts of each of those alternatives have not been validated, nor have they been accurately identified and substantiated, nor has the appropriate mitigation for each of those impacts been presented. And I'm just going to be very frank and say the prevailing opinion among most of the engaged citizens is that the need and the purpose has been deliberately falsified. So it's clear to me, and probably to anyone who's bothered to educate themselves on the subject of sustainable water management, that this project does not represent progress, either for Boulder County or for the state of Colorado. Spending another $350 million on top of the considerable debt that Denver Water already has with the existing infrastructure, which is an outdated and unsustainable water management system, is going to set us back another 50 years from pursuing conscientious, safe, sustainable urban water infrastructures. What should be pursued at this point in time are those ideas that are going to deliver technological advances in both natural and engineered solutions. Things like reuse and recovery, reducing consumption, subsurface water systems. It's those kind of state-of-the-art, practical, and sustainable solutions that are already being developed by the Engineering Resource Center. Reinventing the nation's urban water infrastructure, or Renew It, as they're called. They've been working in close partnership with utilities, water service providers, equipment manufacturers, and international research partners. That is the way of progress, and that is the way of a sustainable future for our state. Now, I fully understand the concerns and the fears that Boulder County may have around utilizing the 1041 vehicle at this point. I mean, it's never been exercised before. It's tough, but this project commands it. I've been reminded recently of a speech by Theodore Roosevelt that was delivered in 1910, and it's referred to as the man in the arena. I'm going to quote only the last sentence in the interest of brevity. He who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. Daring greatly is called for by all of us right now, if we're going to effect the change that we need to ensure the long-term viability of the amazing ecosystem that our great state is known for. My second item is in reference to the proposed IGA between Denver Water and Boulder County. First, I will say I haven't really had adequate time to really evaluate all the shortcomings and the issues with the document. Myself and a lot of others, we honestly do feel it was kind of sprung on us at a very inconvenient time. I know that's a little grousing, but, and we didn't have a lot of warning. It's very hard to mobilize people this time of year. But I will say that at first pass, I find the document is significantly inadequate in addressing the concerns, the needs, and the requirements of the citizens of this county. There's a large number of questions and issues that need to be addressed, but I don't obviously have time for that, so I've got three just top of mind I'll mention quickly. One is compensation for losses that are going to be incurred by the affected citizens, who not only have nothing to gain from this project, but are not even customers of Denver Water. And I'll just use myself as an example, and I think my situation is very similar to many of my neighbors. My residence and my office will become completely untenable with the launch of this project. I retired from my first career to pursue a career as a fiction writer. The quiet and the solitude that my environment provides me is critical to my success in that endeavor. In addition, I have health issues related to lung sensitivity to pollutants. That will force me to relocate for a period of the project, which could be up to 7 years. If I look at my base monthly housing cost over 7 years, that's $350,000. I don't have a retirement plan that's going to cover that loss. As a matter of fact, The value and the equity of my property is a huge component of my retirement plan. So how will I be compensated for that project? How will others in similar circumstances be compensated for their impacts? Second, the mitigations of the project impacts they're not only weakly defined, but they're lacking in quantifiable data as to the significance of the noise, air, and light pollution on both humans and wildlife, as well as the risks and the impacts to the wildlife and the area vegetation that will come from the logging of 450 trees. It is a highly complex environment, and it has not yet been defined. And I could go on and on with the list of mitigation concerns, but I'll provide that input in writing. The third item was, I still question what the value of the acquisition of the toll property brings to the citizens of Boulder County. No one's been able to really explain that to me in a way that makes sense. And better yet, how does that property benefit the highly affected citizens of this project, namely people like me? This IGA, in my opinion, does not represent the best interest of Boulder County citizens. And until such time as all citizen inputs can be adequately responded to, I feel that signing this document would be a travesty and it would be an affront to the citizens whose interests you represent. I've been a resident in Boulder County for 38 years. I've worked very hard to maintain my life and my livelihood in this community. If you've never driven up Flagstaff Road, I want you to know it's a very challenging road. It's not the easiest road in the county to navigate. And really, the only reason anyone is willing to endure the hardship of that road every day is because of the solitude and the quiet that the nature provides. Without that, nobody will live up there. There wouldn't be a reason. The impacts of this project are significant and permanent to the welfare of our state and county, and to me personally. My physical and mental health, my financial stability and retirement that I've worked so hard to achieve will be lost. I will have no choice but to take legal recourse against Boulder County and Denver Water if this project is approved. And it looks like litigation, one way or another, might be in the cards. I'm fighting for my home, my well-being, and to preserve the natural essence of this state for future generations. And I hope and expect that my commissioners will fight with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Ching, you're up next. And Greg, that would include Fred, and Amina, and Josie. Great, thank you. And following Greg is John Farrow.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Greg Ching. I reside at 18 Meadowland Court, and which is the south side, the Magnolia Road side of Gross Dam Reservoir. I'm a 17-year resident, wish I was 17-year-old, 17-year resident and former volunteer firefighter, so I've actually driven a lot of large vehicles along the roads there. I'm basically speaking also on behalf of the Preserve Unique Magnolia Association. There was a reference to the fact that some monies would be involved to promote some projects that Puma endorsed. To my recollection, and based on other people here from Puma, we're opposed to this project. We have not recommended any trail development or anything like that. In fact, we're actually quite upset that the submerging of the Forsyth Canyon waterfall trail, which is something that we all use, is going to be destroyed. It'll be submerged underneath this. And I think the books that you have seen have pictures of the waterfalls and that sort of thing. Now, I also want to say, before I forget, I want to say thank you very, very much for adding a January meeting. We have a number of people here, but this is 5 days before Christmas. Whether you celebrate it or not, it's still 5 days before Christmas. So I'm personally not going to be here in January, so I do hope there will be some public discussion after this, after the public commentary. But I want to say thank you very much. I also want to say thank you very much, since I won't be in January, to Commissioner Tour for his many years of service, since I won't be here that time. Okay, so I just want to make a couple points. I don't believe there is a justified need to expand Gross Dam Reservoir. I don't think the conservation measures have been exhausted, and I've written about that, and I think I've sent you a copy of my article. But I want to mention two things. In 2004, the Journal of the American River Resources Association studied the effectiveness of the 2002 Front Range drought restrictions. And they're studying outdoor water usage. On page 84 of that study, it concluded that the greatest savings by percentage were found in the cities with the most aggressive and stringent mandatory restrictions. 22% for the 4 water providers using every third day watering, 33% in the 3-day cities limiting watering to twice a week, and 56% in Lafayette, which limited water to once a week. On page 85, the author suggests that in the absence of drought, the cities of Colorado's Front Range may want to consider adopting outdoor watering restrictions on a permanent basis as part of a long-term conservation program. Now, when I think about the Gross Dam Reservoir expansion, basically allowing more Kentucky bluegrass lawns instead of using native buffaloes, and these are things that Boulder County has really encouraged, that people try to do xeriscaping, things like that. I'm appalled that we'd be part of this, especially since there's no real need at the moment there. And also, when I watch the movie No Water to Waste, I see the connection between filling Gross Dam and potentially expanding the Beltway through Jefferson County through the plutonium-contaminated Rocky Flats area. And I see that being a connection there as well. So I'm opposed to that. But also in 2009, the Colorado Conservation Water Board study on table 6 on page 13 says, even without updating the toilets, which is, they estimate 27% of household water usage, according to that study, if 50% of Denver Water's customers upgraded to more efficient appliances, over 19,000 acre-feet would be saved annually. Now, that's more than the proposed Gross Dam annual supply, in terms of that, the increase there. So Denver Water could create a lot of local jobs just by upgrading plumbing fixtures, and at a far lower cost than the hundreds of millions of dollars spent on dam construction. Now, we live in a system of capitalism, so Denver Water can dig their own grave if they want to do that. But I do want to say that, to save some time here, I'd like to have those who want Boulder County to exercise 1041 authority to deny the expansion of Gross Dam Reservoir to raise their hands right now. Thank you. I also want to make about the IGA, because I realize that that's what we're here to talk about. I would like to make 3 main points about the IGA. I know other people will provide more mitigation details, and you'll get some things in writing. The first is I would like to insist that, please insist on a no fracking clause in the potential, in the IGA. And the reason is that the New York Times has reported acre-feet sales of over $2,000 per acre-foot. An acre-foot is like over 300,000 gallons, so we're talking a lot of money. A lot of water, I should say. And other people reported over $5,000 per acre-foot. So the fact that typical farmers are bidding for $30 per acre-foot, now Denver Water may claim that they're not actually going to sell any, but if that's the case, then it shouldn't be a problem. They should be able to sign this thing. Otherwise, it'd be windfall profits. The other thing I'd like to say is that, number 2, is that while the offer to provide open space funds is really nice, and I like the idea, who's opposed to open space, the total compensation to the stakeholders involved, I believe, is several orders of magnitude too low. I think compensation should be a minimum of $50 million. And you'll hear more specific numbers from other people with different opinions. And finally, my third thing is that I would like you to request that Denver Water use the existing rail line to move construction materials and transporting these down trees rather than using trucks. That would be a big thing as far as mitigation is concerned. So in summary, I think there are many, many unknowns behind this project. I think that Denver Water could clarify and be more concrete about what things are. I do hope that Boulder County, and I know you guys mean Boulder County best interest in heart. I believe you in that. I do believe that you need to know more before you accept potentially a very lowball offer. And I think in the eyes of some of the people around here, if you do accept this offer, it might be considering, say, accepting a bribe, not necessarily a legal bribe, but the point is the county as a whole is taking something, just as Denver Water has managed to buy off many other areas in the western slope and other things, this will be seen as something along those lines. So thank you very much.
Thank you. John Farrow, and with you are Stephanie and Joe Smith. Thank you. Okay, so John, you have 9 minutes, and you'll be followed by Gabriel Louise.
Good afternoon. My name's John Farrow. I live at 281 Lakeshore Park Road and own 2 additional properties, all 3 on the North Shore overlooking Gross Dam. I want to again thank you, commissioners, for your service to our unique community. Flagstaff Mountain is extremely accessible to the residents and tourists, culminating at Gross Reservoir, which deserves to be developed in the most natural and desirable setting. If, in fact, this project were to go forward, this dam expansion project was initially priced at $140 million. We're minimally up to $340 now. I have a construction background, and I can easily see this type of major construction going up again by double or triple. This huge investment at such an outstanding recreational and natural backdrop demands exceptional landscape and site design to finish it in a flawless scenic feature that can rival the best in Colorado and the best in Boulder. I invite you commissioners to our house and Gross Reservoir to experience this special place in Boulder County, only 20 minutes from where you sit. I want to be assured there is a complete reclamation and restoration as natural as possible, regardless of the cost of the project. I have read that the proposed terraced above water on-site quarry is specifically not to be restored per the DEIS. We now look out on a significant scar left from the 1954 original dam project. But no residence existed there then, and the public and environmental awareness was vastly diminished compared to today. The planned barren gravel rock terraced area is many times the size of the existing one and is not acceptable today. I think the construction impact, including any aggregate on-site material generation, should be done so that minimally it is at least 30 feet below the new raised spillway and completely below water for ideally late spring through early fall, the high water level period at Gross. I want a site and landscape design plan now for public review indicating a complete high-quality restoration wherever new man-made construction work has impacted any scenic views seen by the public, most of which are Boulder County residents. I'm disappointed that in the Boulder County Commissioners on March 10, 2010, as Conrad had mentioned, letter as far as their comments on the Moffat collection system, DEIS, and the draft FERC license amendment. I counted it as 28 pages, but it might have printed bigger in mine. A significant letter and significant document. You were emphatic that it had not established A, purpose and need, B, the best alternatives, water conservation and sustainability, C, the immense impacts on environment, residents, residents' quality of life, recreation, traffic safety, and property values. None of those were sufficient. D, anywhere close to adequate mitigation procedures or their true cost, or the appropriate available scientific, empirical, and contemporary data to support this project. As was mentioned before, we have assumptions that DEIS was based on that really haven't come to fruition yet, and they are using those to even forecast further into the future. Now with this draft IGA, that is being disregarded to allow Denver Water Board 30 to 50 more years of doing business as it has in the past. This possibly $500 million plus project likely to be financed by a government bond obligating Denver Water Board to pay it off from selling this state's citizens' own water back to them at increasing rates. Isn't it better to implement an on-record Colorado Water Conservation Board, which was talked about by Greg, water conservation and sustainability requirements that so many Denver Water Board municipal customers have not even drawn up conservation plans for. So we haven't even gotten municipalities to draw a plan up let alone implement it. And just the studies have shown such water conservation and growing reusable water resources that are, in play now alone would provide more water on a yearly basis than this dam project. And such water programs are inevitable as Colorado headwaters suffer from more drought and and more out-of-state demand. Currently, right now, there is a dam-raised reservoir project in San Diego, the St. Vincent Dam, that's going up by 100 and I think it is less than 100 feet. And that is the biggest raised dam project this world has seen. And so we will eclipse that. We will have a higher dam, and we will store actually more additional water with that. This project is in its third year of a 4-year process, which is looking like it's going to extend significantly beyond that. It gets all its water for additional storage from the headwaters of the Colorado. So here is another draw, inevitably coming at us on the headwaters, and we're taking a current 40% of the water from the Fraser River now. This project wants another 40%, leaving only 20% of the Fraser River flow. So I don't know where all this water is coming from. I mean, thank goodness it snowed. So I encourage you and Boulder to support Denver Water Board in moving into the 21st century water consciousness, and do it now, and avoiding hundreds of millions of dollars of antiquated water policy debt, and move them towards and the state, and let Boulder lead this consciousness and mindset to what we are going to have to do. So thank you for your time, and I hope you'll stand with us to do the right thing here. Thanks.
Thank you. Gabriel Louise, you're up next, and then you have 6 minutes. Anna Cooper, I guess, thanks. Okay, great. And then Chris Garr will follow you. Thank you.
Well, hello. My name is Gabriel Louise, and I live at 18 Juniper Heights, Golden, Colorado. I wanted to start out by saying thank you. I've met with many of you personally over the last few weeks, and I appreciate your time and consideration. Before I get into my written speech, I just want to respond to a couple of points that Conrad made. I understand that the principal argument that he's putting forth today about why you should sign this IGA is because he feels that it is analogous or synonymous to the 1041 permitting process. On the other hand, I met with him and asked him outrightly if under the 1041 permit process it was possible to just deny a permit altogether. And his principal response to me was that it had never been done in the past, but that it wasn't necessarily impossible. And so my feeling on that is that that makes this IGA not synonymous. If you're not allowed to prejudge whether or not you would permit a project of this size, then I find it a little frightening that you would be able to prejudge it by permitting it through this IGA. So that's the same point to me. So that's the first thing that I want to point out. I also wanted to point out that during his presentation too, he said that it would be about 2 to 4 years to construct this project. A lot of the figures that we've seen have said 4 to 7, and the fact that there's nothing concretely in writing to say exactly how long it's going to take is of principal concern to us. Rough estimates in this type of situation are just not satisfactory to the residents that are living up in the affected construction zone. Compensation, the concept of compensation for inundated lands is slightly insulting to us. That views the earth as a resource and not as a home of human beings or the rare animal and plant species that live in that area. One swath of land that could be conserved through open space funds is not synonymous to the swath of land that will be inundated when the reservoir is flooded. Okay, so getting on to my formal speech, I'm going to say a few things here that you probably already know as being educated commissioners, but maybe some people in this room don't. What most people don't know is that their water does come from the other side of the Continental Divide in a tunnel called the Moffat Tunnel. That water comes from the Fraser River, a major tributary of the Colorado River. The Colorado River for over 15 years has not reached its delta in the Sea of Cortez. The swath of land that was once a stunning oasis is now a barren desert. What most people don't know is that Denver Water is a business. They are responsible in no way to voters. Denver Water avoids any public oversight at all by refusing public dollars, earning that money instead through incessant expansion. This means the public is locked out of their decision-making process. They are motivated by profit, and they make money by new tap fees, i.e. new development, and by the sale of their water. As such, Denver Water is at odds with any effort to conserve water or slow urban development. Despite grandiose and expensive PR efforts to convince the populace otherwise, they have not implemented progressive conservation programs that are effective at addressing drought because it would be not in their financial interest to do so. They make decisions like any industry according to the bottom line. Emissions is also of no concern to them. For example, in the Hall study that was just released about a week ago, it was pointed out that they could lower emissions by over 50% if they were to use the railway system. However, and I quote, it says in their Hall study, over 50% or any percent for that matter would not be substantial grounds by which to make a business decision. So once again, they are operating according to the bottom line. Most people also don't know that Denver Water is the second largest water utility in the United States. They are a big, big business with a lot of money to throw around and buy out little guys standing in their way. We, the citizens, do not have millions of dollars to hire a PR specialist to contort the truth, and we do not have financial resources with which to launch misleading advertising campaigns. And we do not have a team of lawyers to scare governments into striking deals to push our business agendas, but we do have the truth and a sense of profound commitment to seeing that this injustice be exposed. We do have the simple fact that we are your constituents, and your responsibility is to make decisions according to our best interest, not according to the interest of a single entity, a business entity. I encourage you, commissioners, to proceed proactively and not reactively. I encourage you, commissioners, to make your choice based on courage and not fear. I encourage you, commissioners, to not rush into signing this bribe on account of any threat that Denver Water bullies your staff into buying. Proceeding without presenting a concrete plan to address each and every repercussion this project will have is unsatisfactory. And I believe once that research has been done, you will find that it is impossible to address everything that this project is, and that this project is in fact unwarranted. At that time, perhaps you too will find it prudent to simply make history and deny the 1041 permit altogether. I'm going to skip ahead here so I have time. My home is set back a mere 12 feet from Gross Dam Road. No study has been done as to the noise or the safety of Gross Dam Road by Denver Water or by Boulder County. My home is not unique in its proximity. Having done my own research about the way sound travels, I discovered that I will hear at 117 decibels the sound of a passing semi inside of my house. Since the trucks are currently scheduled to pass every 3 minutes from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., I would not be able to be present on my own property without suffering hearing damage. This level of noise pollution far exceeds OSHA standards for an actual work site, let alone a private residence. Not only do I live on my property, but I work there as well because I am a musician. I am a composer. My hearing is of utmost concern to me and my livelihood. I specifically purchased my property in order to work in a quiet setting distance from other residences, and like my neighbors, I do not live in my house, I live on my land. Installing thicker windows or a swamp cooler to muffle the sound would neither be effective nor equivalent, and frankly, it is an insult to me that this was considered by your staff to be a tangible solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Garr. And Chris, you have 10 minutes. And I'm looking for Gretchen, Matthew, and Jean. Just raise your... Okay, thanks. It's a 10-minute max, right.
My name is Chris Garr. I live at 18 Juniper Heights, Golden, Colorado, and I am president of TEG, the environmental group. We recognize that the Board of Commissioners is under significant pressure from staff and Denver Water to sign this agreement on the 7th, before the final EIS is released and there is a change in commissioners. We believe that rushing this decision is irresponsible and that proper studies need to be conducted in regard to impacts within the county prior to signing such a deal. The majority of citizen input will be received on the 7th, as today's meeting was scheduled at 4 o'clock on a workday and during the busy holiday season. Signing it the evening of the 7th will not allow enough time to consider that input. I want to make it very, very clear, since I know that the public consensus is to subject the project to your 1041 authority and deny the 1041 permit. And I want to quote from you paragraph A1 of your land use code, which is your 1041 authority. It says, a permit may not be approved unless the applicant satisfactorily demonstrates that the proposal, including all mitigation measures proposed by the applicant, complies with all of the applicable criteria set forth in this article. It seems to me and to many others that very clearly you can outright deny the permit. We understand that you most likely will have to go through litigation to enforce that decision, but that's exactly what we want you to do. To that end, our website has available to citizens an option where they can submit a public comment letter, whereby I receive a copy of their public comment letter in lieu of their being here this evening. As I last checked before the meeting started, over 80 letters were submitted, so that's 80 folks that aren't able to be here this evening. But I have one of these letters printed out, and I just want to read it so that you can know what kind of input is being submitted through your email by viewers at home. Dear County Commissioners, you absolutely must use the full extent of your 1041 powers to stop the proposed expansion of Gross Dam Reservoir. I've heard that you are afraid to exert your 1041 to this extent because of a fear of a federal preemption with regard to the FERC permit. Regardless, I need you to take that risk. Stop the project with your 1041. To date, the county is not taking into full consideration the true impact of this project. The biggest shortcomings of the draft IGA that I personally see are listed below, though this list doesn't even begin to address all the concerns that everyone else in my community has. And there are 82 issues listed here, and I hope that the Denver Water fellows in the back are taking notes. Traffic and safety issues on Highway 72. Speed differences in passenger vehicles compared to the semi-truck vehicles is not adequately addressed merely with the proposal to improve the existing turnouts. The safety of the hairpin turns on Highway 72 is still not adequately addressed. The width of the lanes on Highway 72 are insufficient to accommodate this heavy truck traffic safely. Aggregate may be blown or spilled from the trucks onto the road, posing a danger of slide-outs, especially for motorcycles which frequent the road in high numbers every summer. A semi-truck tire blowout could easily be deadly on this small, curvy two-lane road, and blowouts are inevitable with this level of truck traffic. Truck traffic turning off of Highway 72 onto Gross Dam Road will need to make a 180-degree hairpin turn, which doesn't even look possible and certainly looks incredibly dangerous to attempt. The risk of getting hit by a truck or car while on foot will go up dramatically on Highway 72 with the increase in truck traffic. Similarly, the risk of getting hit by a truck or car while bicycling along Highway 72, an extremely popular bike route, will go up dramatically with the increase in truck traffic. Slow-moving trucks on the treacherous washboarded Gross Dam Road, especially during the summer when many tourists drive the road, will cause many accidents and/or deaths as those unaware of the project attempt to pass on blind corners. The corners are way too tight on Gross Dam Road for two semi-trucks to pass each other, meaning they will have to take the turns one at a time. An uninformed tourist may pass a stopped truck on a corner only to come face-to-face at full speed with another truck coming the other way. The current width of Gross Dam Road cannot possibly be expected to provide safe travel to all these trucks and citizens in passenger cars at the same time. Washboarding on Gross Dam Road, which will be tremendously increased with this truck traffic, poses a major danger of slide-outs on a road with steep, deadly drop-offs. A semi-truck tire blowout could easily be deadly on this small, curvy, dirt mountain road, and blowouts are inevitable with this level of truck traffic. The risk of getting hit by a truck or car on Gross Dam Road while on foot will go up dramatically. Similarly, the risk while on bicycle will go up dramatically. Residents living along Gross Dam Road will be cut off from safe passage to the Coal Creek Canyon Community Center, the only community venue in the area. Properties along and anywhere near Gross Dam Road will be rendered unlivable by the noise the truck traffic will create. In the mountains, people do not live in their homes as in the city. Rather, they live on their properties. That's why they chose to live in the mountains. Unimproved properties along and anywhere near Gross Dam Road will be rendered unusable by the noise the truck traffic will create. Many citizens own unimproved property in this area, which they visit during the summer to get away from the noise and development attitude of the city. Fire trucks, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles will have a major time delay in servicing anywhere near Gross Dam Road. The amount of ozone and diesel particulates that homes along and near Gross Dam Road will be subjected to is completely unjust. Noxious weed seeds, which come from any construction traffic, will be spread along the roadside and migrate into yards, putting a tremendous burden on residences along Gross Dam Road. Currently, the county forces residents to mitigate their own noxious weed infestations, yet with this project, the county would acquiesce to a massive invasion of knapweed, bindweed, thistle, and leafy spurge. Water wells and septic systems for homes along and near Gross Dam Road will be prone to collapse due to the massive increase in heavy vehicle truck traffic along the road. The risk of fire will increase many-fold along Gross Dam Road, already a high-risk area, with so many heavy vehicles and so many drivers unaccustomed to mountain fire risks. It only takes one cigarette butt. Dust from the truck traffic along Gross Dam Road will severely impact homes along and near the road and the residents of those homes, especially those with asthma. Property values of homes along and near Gross Dam Road will drop drastically with the massive increase in truck traffic. Rental values of homes along and near Gross Dam Road will drop drastically as well, if not to zero, with the massive increase in truck traffic. What would happen during county or state fire bans? Would Denver Water be allowed to continue burning trees with its air curtain structure even during a fire ban? That would put the area at an extremely high risk of wildfire, which would be completely unacceptable. Aggregate dust blown from the top of trucks traveling along Gross Dam Road poses an air quality problem. There are no provisions for the continuous monitoring of sound levels along Gross Dam Road. This puts residents at significant unnecessary risk. I need to know what monitoring tools will be used, how often they'll be checked, who will be in charge of monitoring, and I will need to have public access to the data as well as clearly defined recourse for violations. Properties along and anywhere near Lazy Z Road and Magnolia Road may be rendered unlivable by the noise the truck traffic will create. In the mountains, people do not live in their homes. They live on their properties. Unimproved properties along and anywhere near Lazy Z and Magnolia Road will be rendered unusable by the noise. Fire trucks, ambulances, and other emergency vehicles will have difficulty and delays accessing Lazy Z and Magnolia Road. Ozone and diesel particulates will affect the lives of those living in the homes along and near Lazy Z Road and Magnolia Road. Noxious weed seeds will be spread along Lazy Z Road and Magnolia Road. Water wells and septic systems for homes along Lazy Z Road and Magnolia Road will be at risk. The risk of fire in this area as well will increase dramatically. Dust from the truck traffic along Lazy Z and Magnolia Road will severely impact homes along and near the road and the residents of those homes, especially those with asthma. Property values along Lazy Z and Magnolia Road will drop drastically. Rental values will drop dramatically along Lazy Z and Magnolia Road as well. Again, there are no provisions for continuous monitoring of sound along Lazy Z and Magnolia Road. The county cannot allow the staging site for the project to remain as scarred earth, a horrific eyesore, after the project is completed. The IGA must enforce total restoration and beautification of this area. This revegetation plan needs to be clearly defined in advance. The county cannot allow the sites where aggregate will be harvested to remain as scarred earth after the project is completed. The IGA must enforce total restoration and beautification of this area as well. To my knowledge, neither Denver Water or the county have published any studies on the air pollution that will be generated by the project. Gross Reservoir regularly sees wind speeds in excess of 50 miles per hour, so whatever pollutants that are released will be spread far and wide and will be difficult to monitor. There have been no definitive numbers published with regard to the actual noise levels to be generated by any of the equipment or explosives used during construction of the project. These include, but are not limited to, heavy-duty construction equipment, the cement batch plant, the quarry, the aggregate plant, helicopters, hydro axes, crushing and grinding of trees, and chainsaws felling trees. There is a lack of published evidence that the existing structure of Gross Dam can even support the additional load of the expansion project. Obviously, a failure of the structure would be catastrophic. This deserves an exhaustive study, and the results of the study need to be open to the public. I'm going to skip ahead about 50 of these.
We have them in writing here, too. So
Great.
Yeah.
And the letter concludes with, to think that money could be an appropriate solution to these issues is insane. However, given the ridiculously short time frame with which you are giving us to comment on this draft IGA, I would guess that an additional $50 million at the very least added to the IGA as compensation to citizens affected by project construction impacts may come close to effectively addressing most of these issues. It is imperative that the county acquire these funds in advance in order to avoid land use lawsuits, as well as others from citizens like myself. and you should know that I am insulted by the wording of paragraph 4.3, which pits concerned citizens directly affected by this project against the county-wide interest and my own interest of acquiring open space. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, we've reached the end of our pooled time, and we'll turn to the section where we have individual speakers. So we have a couple pages of folks who've signed up. There may be others who want to speak. We'll catch up with you at the end of the process. So we'll start out with Clark Chapman, followed by Y. Chapman.
Commissioners, I'm aware that none of you really like this project. What's happening here is that Denver Water is trying to intimidate you through this IGA, and I'm going to restrict my discussion to the IGA. There's two prongs of the IGA. One is about $8 million of financial incentives. I consider them bribes. My guess is Denver Water considers them the cost of doing business. Pretty minuscule compared to the overall cost of the project. And the second prong pretends to offer local mitigations to Boulder County. And I think it barely scratches the surface of what's required. And I'm really shocked that your staff is recommending that this is, the best you can do. Let me give some examples. My wife and I have prepared a critique of every element of the IGA. Just some examples. They're offering you that if the road is damaged through Coal Creek Canyon and CDOT requires them to repair it, that then they'll do so. Well, that's not an offer to you guys. They have to do it anyway if CDOT requires it. They're not saying you can require it if CDOT doesn't. Similarly, they're offering, as a mitigation for dust, that they'll obey regulation number 1 of the state air pollution controls. They've got to obey regulation number 1 anyway. That's not an offer. There's a bunch of things that are like this. A lot of the other measures that are offered are very vague. They use words like, they'll make a good faith attempt to do this or that if it's practicable. Your staff member misquoted one of these things in a pretty dire way. He said that you would be absolutely given the power to approve or not the tree removal plan. It doesn't say that. It says that Denver Water will recommend to FERC that you could participate in the approval process. Recommend. It's no guarantee. Noise. The noise pollution is a joke. They offer to set as the minimum noise level during the night a noise level that's 1,000 times louder than what the recent Hall study that just came out last week says is the ambient noise in the Coal Creek Canyon area. It's just, and then they're free to just ignore it if they choose to by paying a $2 million fine. Denver Water says that they will respond to any complaint from an inspector from the county. Respond, saying thank you for your complaint. We don't agree. Goodbye. There's no enforcement. I'm going to give you these specific critiques of the IGA, also some examples of specific mitigations, which I believe would total hundreds of millions of dollars, not $50 million. Just in closing, this is not like the fracking ban situation, where had you approved the ban, you'd certainly be sued and certainly lose. This is a vital thing where Boulder County has a national reputation, and I really urge that you be brave and deny this IGA and use the 1041 powers. And
Thank you. Bring them on up now. That's fine. That's great. So White Chapman, you're next, and then William Otto. Thanks.
Commissioners
Thank you.
and Gardner and Will Tour. My name is Y. Chapman, a.k.a. LYNDA, initial M. Chapman, and I reside at 2083 Lazy Z Road in Boulder County. First and foremost, I'd like to just mention that the present IGA, in my opinion, after studying and doing a little bit of research, is underhanded, unenforceable, sloppy, and unprofessional. You are the gatekeepers for the entire Gross Reservoir area, as you know, and that's why we're here. You have been selected by the people in Boulder County to serve by, of, and for the people, so I'm sure that you will do the right thing by using your integrity to insist on reviewing the EIS before any decisions are made. This project will be your legacy to save or not to save the streams and the Colorado River. Also, this huge undertaking will cost Denver Water over $1 billion as the top of the envelope calculation that I made for 5 years of relocating the residences and homeowners for all the compensations of all the people involved in all the areas, et cetera, not to mention the destruction of our elk migration route, which everyone in the vicinity and all around the world who come here value extremely. There is no scientific basis for the expansion of the Gross Dam that we've heard so many times, so when the necessary research is completed, then that may or may not be for considerations. Please do not sell out to Denver Water for minimal escrow amounts or even to the whims of Governor Hickenlooper. Severe modifications and enforceable restrictions are most definitely required after the EIS is released. Thank you very much, Commissioners, and have a happy holiday.
Thank you. William Otto, followed by Emil Maravich.
Afternoon. My name is William Otto. I live at 33 Frontier Lane, which is at the junction of Magnolia Road and County Road 68. I would like to start off with that the residents were not well notified, and the effect of this project goes well beyond the 1,500-foot limits or the quarter mile. This is a moving project just because they're doing such major construction. There are multiple issues that affect the residents and are not well defined in the intergovernmental agreement. Among these are air pollution, noise pollution, visual pollution, safety in the community, and increasing the wildfire problem. Several major safety concerns with all the residents within the area. They want to increase the traffic on the road on a road that is not able to handle this much traffic. Right now, Magnolia Road is overloaded, and you can ask any of your county engineers. They'll tell you that for a fact right now. It is clear that some people who have been doing some of the planning here don't even know the Magnolia Road area. They maybe have looked at it on Google Earth. Let's look at some of these problems that are not addressed by the IGA or engineering reports. 1, the turn at Magnolia Road and County Road 68 is a blind intersection due to the angle that the two roads intersect and that the trees blocking the view to the west. Second, the steepness of Magnolia Road at 68. With such large vehicles, they will prefer not to stop or slow down. They want to keep their momentum up and just swing around that curve, and they're hoping that nobody's coming. 2, 3, the turn just west of the 8-mile marker on Magnolia Road is very semi-truck and friendly. And in fact, I have seen several trucks being jammed up in there beforehand. Lastly, not to mention the route that's finally beyond that, there's a blind crest there that is very narrow. It's not really 2 cars wide. And no mention of the route's final destination. Are they going to try to use 97 as the shortcut to cut off about 5 miles of route? Other areas that were mentioned that we do not have the methodologies for is 1, their air pollution thing. Who's controlling the dust? How are they going to control this and other things? Noise pollution. Big trucks make big noise. They have their Jake brakes, even though they say they're not going to use it. These guys love to use that Jake brake because it saves their other brakes. So there are so many other things there. And I do not even like the 6 to 10 p.m. there. I live at the corner. Would you like to come home after work and have these trucks passing by you every 7 minutes? I will end there.
Thank you. Emil Marovich, followed by Crystal Marovich. You can use the mic at the table if it's closer to you. Just pull it on in, grab it on the base and pull it over.
Hi, I'm Anil Markovich, and first of all, I'm very concerned about this project for several reasons, and mostly about wildlife. I do not think that we are helping ourselves with Gross Dam expansion. If we destroy other species on Earth, we are destroying ourselves. First of all, this dam can have several impacts on wildlife. 2, fish can be easily trapped, and the waterfalls coming out can be dangerous for fish. If they hit rocks, they can die easily. Now, okay, they're not salmon, most of them. It sure will destroy the elk root, that was already mentioned. And 2, many homes of wild creatures are around the place and in the place of the place that's going to be flooded. That makes lots of dangers for a large variety of species. Depending who lives there, well, depends what it is. But whatever, it's destroying our ecosystem that we depend on and we need for survival on planet Earth. Our beautiful spaceship that should be traveling with no air pollution, no bad plug-ear sounds, and should be clean for life to thrive on Earth. We don't know if there is other life in the universe. And whatever, no matter, life on Earth is precious. We cannot pay for life, no matter how much it is. It's not dollars. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Crystal Markovich, followed by Jeff Thompson.
Hi, my name is Crystal Markovich. I live on 207 Cumberland Gap Road, Boulder County.
Pull that mic a little closer. Hold it up a little bit. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. We are all devastated by the recent tragedy in Connecticut. The loss of children is always so painful. But how many children are dying every day in the U.S. from cancer due to pollution of water, of air, and food? We don't talk about them in the daily newspaper. We are all devastated by the memory of the actions of some too well-known dictators. But what about a nation, a state, a county that cannot provide good food, good water, good air to its own children, who are its future? We don't talk about this reality today. But do we also want to have to talk about it later in history books that will chronicle the disaster we are bringing on ourselves today? We have to change this reality. We have to change the rules of the game, all of us, together. We need to take care of our beautiful spaceship, planet Earth. It is going to be much more rewarding than always taking from the Earth, assuming the Earth has infinite resource to give to us. Boulder County Commissioner, Denver water representatives, corporations that push GMO, fracking, resource exploitation, unnecessary consumption. I don't see you as enemies. You are also parents. You are also living beings on this planet. You also need good water, good food, and good air to live, and for your children to live. Let's stand up together. Let's stop this big crazy machine. We all are the drivers, the ones who are still buying gas, GMO food, the ones who are still working to keep this crazy machine running. Boulder County Commissioners, you have a chance to at least locally stop some of the craziness. Use your 1041 powers to fight the gross dam expansion. The mitigations, the dollars and the water promise is candy. Just to shut your mouth. Do not betray the citizen who elected you. Stand up for all of us. We, our children, and your children will be grateful. Every little step counts. Stand up, please. Thank you. Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Jeff Thompson. Oops. Followed by Deborah Greenfield.
Jeff Thompson, 1616 Sumner Street. Here's what I think, Chairman Domenico. First of all, Mr. Lattis said that Boulder County has no say in the FERC proceedings. That is false. FERC will not issue that license amendment until they have heard from Boulder County. And the reason staff, and I think the reason the commissioners are using staff to set up all these red herring issues to get this agreement signed is Denver wants it. They're going to take it immediately to FERC, and they're going to say, see, Boulder County does not object to this license. FERC will not issue the amendment to the license without hearing from Boulder County. And this is just a trick on the people of Boulder County. The preemption issue is a total red herring, and I think Mr. Lattis knows that. He's just allowing himself to be used by the commissioners to set up this excuse for the commissioners to sign this agreement. FERC does not regulate or license municipal water supply projects, and Denver Water has never claimed that this Moffat project is anything but a municipal water supply project. FERC has no interest in regulating this. The license amendment is merely incidental to the water supply project, and it's purely administrative. And it's an absolute no-brainer if our county attorney staff wanted to protect our 1041 powers. All they would have done is petition FERC to make a stipulation in the license amendment that the license amendment will not operate to preempt our land use properties. And they didn't do it, in my opinion, because this county commission is using the county attorneys to work for Denver Water. There's absolutely no question about whether you can stop this project using your 1041 powers. There's no issue about that. We were all here back over a year ago, September of 2011, urging you to do that. And you can do that as long as the criteria are right, because you have to make the decision according to the criteria in the land use code. So if you haven't amended the criteria to be sure that you could stop this project by not issuing the 1041 permit, then what you've been doing is acting on behalf of Denver Water and simply sitting on your hands and not amending the criteria. This whole presentation that the staff is making, that I think the county commissioners have put them up to, is completely deceptive to try to deceive the people that know how wrong this project is into thinking that you have any grounds whatsoever for not denying the 1041 permit.
Deborah Greenfield, followed by Christopher Lundy.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Deborah Greenfield, and I live at 1565 Lazy Z Road. And I have to say, I'm somewhat overwhelmed. I'm also extremely appreciative of my neighbors who have taken this time not only to be here for this particular hearing, but also in the amount of time that people have spent reading and researching and talking and communicating and trying to get an understanding of the scope of this project. As I said, I live on Lazy Z Road. It was only 2 days ago that I became aware of the fact that easement had been sold to the Denver Water Board, allowing for Lazy Z to be opened up as one of the main roads that will be impacted by the construction equipment and the logging trucks. So I've learned so much just by being here, and to some extent I'm sort of overwhelmed, like what do I actually come up and say? And aside from thanking everybody for the research and time they've put into this, I need to kind of, kind of show up for myself in an emotional way. This is also the second time in 6 months that I have spoken before the Board of Commissioners. Both times concerning an issue that directly affects my values, my lifestyle, and my peace of mind. It seems pretty clear to me, if we just use those two incidences in this 1 year, that the beautiful land up in this area, the Magnolia area, Gross Dam, it is such a treasure and it is such a gift. And I was living in Akron, Ohio when I was 14 years old, and I had an opportunity to come to the mountains of Colorado. I decided at age 14 that I wanted to live in these mountains and that I wanted to be able to have a lifestyle that supported my beliefs in wide open spaces, clean air, and blue skies. My husband and I were searching for a property about 10 years ago, I think, and we drew a circle on a map about that big and gave it to our realtor. We said, we won't live here. We did our homework. We knew that we wanted to be in a place where we could enjoy the kinds of things that I have already mentioned. As time moves forward, I think that unique, preserving unique magnolia, that area is being encroached upon. And as I said, this is the second issue I've come to before the commissioners, asking for their help as my elected representatives to try to preserve the area that so many of us love, and so many of us have made tremendous sacrifices, including the drive up Magnolia Road, as access to our properties. I mean, we're there because we want to be. And I am asking you to reject the IGA. And a specific concern I have is how I will be compensated for loss of property values during construction period. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Lundy, and then Kathy Gritz.
Good afternoon or evening. My name is Christopher Lundy. I reside at 3154 Chestnut Circle up in Evergreen, Colorado. And I just want to thank commissioners and Commissioner Torr, and for his service. I heard that he was stepping down next year. I don't really have a dog in this fight, as they say. I did some volunteer work in Jefferson County on the Evergreen Community Plan, and that was used as a template for the rest of Jefferson County, for the other communities, and it was educational. As you may or may not know, the plan that's in status right now is the one that deals with the former Rocky Flats land, and so that's obviously where Denver Water is involved. I certainly don't have any financial stake in any of that, and I don't know that Denver Water is all that altruistic of an entity, but be that the case, I attended a symposium here called The Nation Possessed, September 12th and 14th at the University of Colorado, and we had the Secretary of Interior there, Ken Salazar, and I posed a question to Ken about the forests and how they're being decimated by the pine beetle and what might be done about it, and he gave me the standard response that the chemicals don't work, so on and so forth, and that's fine, and I already knew that, obviously, but the point that I brought up was that if you get in there and start harvesting the trees, you can mitigate, get ahead of the beetles. I mean, compared to the trees that are going to be cut down for the dam, it's minuscule. One of the things that I was concerned about after reading over the material that Francis provided me was that I think those trees should be harvested, and that would have to help to offset some of the cost. What came to mind last year when I testified, I was just trying to educate myself. Again, I'm neither for or against the project. Was about using the rail service to get a lot of that material out of there rather than trucks, and that would mitigate a lot of the problems. Listening to testimony this afternoon, I think it's only fair to compensate the residents that are living up on the reservoir itself. I think they should all be compensated above market value, at least $100,000 for the properties that they want to move. But obviously they knew when they moved there, part of their value is having a view over a reservoir, so I think that would only be fair. A couple of quick kind of questions. As far as the plan is concerned, it seems like there's a lot of money that's being tossed around here for different purposes, and compensating exactly who. I think if the rail service was used, that would kind of mitigate a lot of that and just get it to the specific entities that are going to be directly affected. So thank you much.
Thank you. Kathy Gritz, followed by Mike Seeler. Sorry about that.
I'm Kathy Gritz, and I live at 72 Lakeshore Park Road, and that is on the north shore of the reservoir. Although I can't see the reservoir from my house, it's within walking distance. I see it every day. And beyond that, the surrounding area that I live in is close, and it's beautiful without looking at the reservoir. Everyone's pretty much addressed just about everything that I was feeling was a personal concern, such as that I have a rental property and I live up there, and that my husband and my family chose to be there because of the quiet and the serenity and the wonderful opportunity to share the homes of wildlife and other beings. So that's all been expressed. I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in about some other random things that hadn't been mentioned tonight, such as the safety of the project being on the fault lines. Or some fault lines are apparently close by. They're called Copeland and Golden, and I didn't see that addressed in the IGA. Also, the concern about the spread of the Ips pine beetle. How would that be worsened by the construction? And also, just wanted to mention the sense of the IGA is so restricted to Boulder County. We're not supposed to be concerned about our neighbors, but we are concerned about our neighbors. We can't help it. The Fraser River system, and I know Secretary Ken Salazar has just made an agreement with the Mexican government about refurbishing the Colorado River system. And now we're proposing doing something with the Fraser system to deplete it even further. So I don't quite understand that process of how that all works together. But I just feel like we have an opportunity to be good neighbors instead of bad neighbors, and I hope that the commissioners can take that into consideration as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mike? And then Suzanne Webble, you'd be up next.
Good evening, Commissioners. This time I remember to turn off my phone.
Okay, great, thanks.
My name is Mike Seiler, and my 10-acre slice of Rocky Mountain Heaven is a 1987 Lazy Z Road, Nederland, Colorado, 80466. Lazy Z Road used to be called Hall Road because it was used to haul everything from the backside of Gross Dam when it was originally built. Since I've talked to you last about the Ghost Dam expansion, 2 new documents have become available. The first is the IGA, and the second is the final Borough Hall study, alternative analysis, Ghost Reservoir Dam. Last time I talked to you about my concerns for the recreational splendor of the area and my concern with the impact on the wildlife and scenery. But today I'm going to talk about what this effect has on me and my community. I consider my purchase of my 10-acre lot and 3,000 square foot home and 1,600 square foot barn to be a happy accident, because although I knew I'd like living there, I had no idea how much I would actually just love living there. I am truly blessed. As an entrepreneur, I consider it one of my strengths is my ability to come up with innovative and creative solutions to challenges that any growing business faces. Often when a thorny issue needs insight, I will take to the trails and woods and meadows just upstream from Ghost Dam to gain perspective. It's a problem-solving technique that works for me. The insights I gain are used to enhance my business, which also affects my local contractors, my local customers, and my local suppliers. I've come to appreciate how the peace, solitude, and big sky have given me a great quality of life, but the ripple effect goes far beyond my 10 acres. I'm here today to request that you make it clear to Denver Water that the current IGA does not go nearly far enough to address the loss of quality of life and property value. My reading of the above referenced documents is that the expansion will likely result in a massive disruption of the tranquil environment that is so essential to my being the most economically productive citizen I can be. As I've wandered all over the terrain at issue today, I can tell you from experience that the rugged nature makes it far more difficult to get things in and out than you could possibly imagine. There are very steep slopes, cliffs, everything. While I appreciate being proactive in coming up with Denver Water's compensation offer, it would be foolish to destroy our quality of life for pennies on the dollar without a fight. I'm being pragmatic here. The lowball compensation needs to increase by an order of magnitude to even begin to address the multitude of damages that this project will bring us in Boulder County. And we're not even seeing any real benefit from this. Thank you very much for your consideration, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Suzanne Webble, followed by Tony. I think it's Tony Zabricki.
Suzanne Webble, 5735 Prospect Road, Boulder County. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Boulder Area Trails Coalition and the Boulder County Horse Association. And I want to say I think the glass is half full, but it's not full enough, even from our point of view. This whole area has been a regional trail under consideration in the Boulder County Comprehensive Plan since at least 1986. We've gone around and around and around on how to thread a way through from Rocky Flats to the Peak-to-Peak Highway, and we've come up with a lot of different ideas. This is the one we keep coming back to. I was involved with the El Dorado Canyon State Park Management Plan in 1986. I was involved with the Gross Reservoir Relicensing Plan with FERC in 1996. I was involved in 1998 and 2002 with the Rocky Flats Stakeholder Group. And I was involved with the West TSA, as well as the Walker Ranch Management Plan that's going on right now. We need to get going and make some progress. And I think there are a lot of opportunities here if the issues that people have brought up tonight can be resolved, at least to somebody's satisfaction. All of my efforts have been to improve recreational access for non-motorized users. So I read in the IGA that 450 acres are going to be inundated, which will still be accessible for recreation, but use will be converted from land-based to water-based recreation. That's not of much interest to me. It may be to some other people, but they're not here. The toll property is great. Many people use that toll property now, and I would hate to see it become closed space under conservation easement. If $4 million is going to be spent on the toll property, make it open to non-motorized recreation. Similarly, Section 16 at Rocky Flats. That's okay. I understand the issues with Section 16. I was involved with the Rocky Flats group. I would like to see public access to that area. The document talks about they'll explore trail connections. That's not good enough. We want trails. We can talk about it forevermore. They're going to give $1 million to the Coal Creek Recreation District. Great. $250,000 to Puma. Great. I recommend that an advisory board be set up to talk about how to allocate the funds and administer the public lands, and focus not on the fears but on the positive potential. If approved, we need a plan that includes all Boulder County residents and benefits all of us, not just the people who live there and can go and use these public lands out their backyard. So I urge you to go back to Denver Water. I appreciate you leaving that door open, Will, and negotiate better recreational access. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Zabricki, sorry, and Rod Brusky, you'd be up next.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Tony Zubricki, and I live at 80 Outlet Drive, which is up in Wonderview in Boulder County. I hear lots of dollars being thrown around, numbers for this, dollars for this. What price do you put on human lives? Coal Creek Canyon, being the main haul road, is ridiculous. For one, you can go on the CDOT website and find out that minimum radiuses for 18-wheelers is 45 to 60 foot with shoulders. Most of the corners in Coal Creek Canyon do not have that latitude of shoulders. They don't have those kinds of radiuses. You talk to even FedEx drivers, they don't like the canyon because it's too narrow. You can have drivers going up, they're going to be left to center. Drivers coming down will be left to center. People are going to die. It's that simple. In Denver Water's own words, their initial publication said that the project will be environmentally friendly in 2008. In 2009, they said, oh, by the way, we're going to have to remove 20,000 trees. We're going to have to do this, lots of mitigation projects. The dam was originally designed to be the height that they're proposing now. So they said there would be no more mitigation projects, no more water rights will be needed. Now we're talking about mitigation on the western slope, the Windy Gap Mitigation Project, narrowing the Colorado River for 12 miles to increase the flow, to increase the stream habitat. Who's paying for that? It's all a ruse. It's all based on greed. Denver Water doesn't they control the water, but where does it come from essentially? God. How can you legislate against God? The water is everybody's to use, not just the Denver Water Board. Thank you. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you. Rod Brusky, and then I'm at the end of my list, so we'll check to see who else would like to speak.
Evening, Commissioners. How you doing? I'm Rod Brusky. I live at 8381 East County Line Road. Before I get started here, the first thing I wanted to bring up, and I think I've mentioned this to you guys before with your para account, is divestment, divesting into the local economy instead of the oil and gas industry. It appears that, you know, we've been dealing with the fracking problems here in eastern Boulder County, and I can see the interwoven tightness of this proposed water project. I propose that you guys adopt a measure or an ordinance that says corporations are not people in Boulder County. It might help you out. I hear that a lot of these residents are being offered compensation. That's something that hasn't been offered to anybody in eastern Boulder County about the proliferation of the fracking industry. By cutting off a potential water source for fracking, we can be proactive in curtailing the operations in eastern Boulder County as the oil and gas pays their second-hand people $2,000 an acre foot. We can actually be aware that nothing legal or concrete or currently stands in the way of Denver Water profiting grossly from something that everybody on the planet owns and is entitled to. You know, it comes down to, you know, you can't eat money and you can't drink oil or produced water to live. And I can see you guys being inundated by greed and corporations, not only on the eastern front, but on the western front. I really feel for you guys. I know you have a real tough job. I think the planet Earth can only sustain so much. And there's some place, somewhere, there has to be a line drawn in the sand. And I think Boulder County is the place. It is just one of those things that we all got to look at as human beings, that we are going to have to make compensations and concessions in our lives to to save the planet for our children. And I just see the interwovenness of the corporations and the greed that you guys are under the pressure of, and you need to start listening to the citizens and make that stand and be bold. I understand that, some of your attorneys here, as Mr. Conrad has told me in the past, that he works to protect Boulder County from people like myself. I would appreciate if they would all start working for us as the citizens of Boulder County, and let's correct this democracy problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else in the audience would like to speak tonight? Would you raise your hand so we can see how many folks? Okay, I see 3 more. Is that it? Great. Okay, we'll start with the gentleman with the great tie.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Peter Teasdale, 1815 Grosdam Road. I don't quite live 12 feet away from Grosdam Road, but it's certainly maybe 100 feet from Grosdam Road. And I've been there for about maybe 4 or 5 years. And when I bought the place, I thought I had this idea of adding on to it. And the realtors said, yep, square foot, sunlight, and views. So I have the views, I do the mitigation, and I got from the Rocky Mountains all the way across to the back of the Flatirons, including the Walker Ranch, and hence Grosdam Reservoir as well, the dam. And I can hear the water gushing out off the bottom of the dam from where I live, which is a couple of miles away. So if I can hear that water coming out, I don't know, 5 years of Bastille Day, 4th of July at night time, the noise as well, the fireworks, that's really encouraging. I like this. You've heard there's an international perspective here tonight, and I've had friends come across mountain biking around here, running around here, road biking around here. They go off to Moab, Slick Rock, all these wonderful places. And I remember a couple of friends of mine said, Walker Ranch Loop, they said, why do people go to Moab? Moab's got Slick Rock, it's great. Walker Ranch Loop has got the fantastic views. And they're going to be destroyed and disturbed for 6 or 7 years. They were the years that we heard earlier anyway. Mr. Lattis, I hear that he's an attorney for open space. I don't know whether that's right or wrong.
He's an attorney for county commissioners. Yeah.
County commissioners, okay. Or open spaces is anyway. It seems strange that you have one area, Boulder County, and it has a dam that's owned by a city somewhere else, and then the water is dragged across the mountains from another place, and the people in Europe are going, are these people crazy? Are they really crazy? And they're using all the amount of water that they have got. Churchill, I heard a saying on the radio recently, and I don't want to offend anyone, but this saying from Churchill was, and I hope this isn't true for Boulder County Commissioners, Americans can be relied on doing the right thing after trying everything else.
Thank you. Okay, who else in the middle? I saw 2 hands there. We'll start with the woman in the white and follow up with the gentleman in the gray.
Hi, my name's Heather Lazarus. I live at 1707 Ridge Road, Netherland, but I grew up at 60 Aspen Grove Court, stone's throw distance from the western edge of the reservoir. And I'll be very brief. My thoughts are mostly a reflection on what's been discussed tonight. I'm actually, I hold a PhD in anthropology, and I'm a climate scientist. And I've worked in Colorado and around the world. And so what I wanted to point out is that we've heard a lot about emotions and culture and well-being. And emotions are legitimate. And I want to make the point that there is legitimate as science and as policy, and that's what the climate adaptation community globally is starting to understand, that we live in socio-ecological systems, and we need to consider the socio in order for anything to work, whether it be large-scale policies or local policies, such as we're talking about. People are emotional because this reservoir, albeit it didn't always exist here, and its creation was just as much a change as what we're talking about now, but that was before people were inhabiting the area. So we all have stories about how it interacts with our lives, and mine are that I used to celebrate my birthday parties at the waterfalls that may become underwater, and I was recently engaged in the same place. So this place is a gem, and I encourage you all to come up and, create your own stories and memories in this place as well. And please allow the social side to be as important in the decisions that you make. That's what Boulder's about. That's why we live here. That's why we love this place. So thank you so much for hearing our voices, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Last person, thanks.
How you doing? My name's Todd Edelman. I live at 1890 Lazy Z Road. I've never been to one of these before, so I didn't think I was going to speak, but I just made some notes, but I'm slightly unprepared. So I just wanted to, first off, I've been up there about 15 years. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and her and all the neighborhood kids ride their bikes up and down Lazy Z Road fairly frequently, and my suspicion, if this passes, that will, obviously change. Being here today and listening to everybody makes me both proud and ashamed to sort of live in our society. I'm proud because all my neighbors have taken the time and the energy to do a lot more research than I have to come up and stand up for what's right. And ashamed because it's the same old story. I feel like this is much bigger than the actual project that we're talking about. That's certainly an aspect of it. But it's about right and wrong. It's about big business versus citizens. It's about resource management versus development. On and on. In my opinion, right and wrong doesn't have anything to do with compensation. Whether it's $5 million, whether it's $100 million, it might change the smiles on people's faces when they have to evacuate or sell their home or move because of health issues or because their lifestyle no longer matches what the environment that they're living in provides. But to me, it doesn't change the fact. It's still right and wrong. I've heard many people say that the last and final World War, which hopefully doesn't happen, will be fought over water. If we in Boulder, Colorado, which is supposed to be an intelligent, reasonable, well-educated, progressively thinking community, cannot take a stand and make the right and proper decision, then what does that say about our future and our country?
Thank you. Okay, just one last quick check. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? Oh, yes, in the very back. Please come on up.
Good evening. I'm David Barnett. I live at 2089 Gross Dam Road. I just wanted to add a little color. I can't add a whole lot of, I think comments have been made that are good, but I just want you to imagine Gross Dam Road. If you go up and down that road any time of the day, from the morning to the evening, you'll see people walking their dogs, or people just walking along the road, kids, people on horseback. When I look out my window towards Gross Dam and towards the back of the Flatirons, there's never a week that goes by that I don't see at least 10, 12, 14 different varieties of animals, from wild turkeys to elk to deer to bear to cougars. Their environment will get disturbed by this, if not totally destroyed. When you change the environmental area that an animal or groups of animals live in, they don't generally go back for years. And that's really it. I just want you to imagine the serenity and the beauty and the animals and the people's lifestyles that up there that are going to be prevailed upon. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. All right, one last check. Okay, looks like we're good for the night. As you know, it's our intention, based on staff recommendation, to continue the public hearing to Monday, January 7th, hopefully giving more folks a chance to come and join us. And that meeting starts at 5 p.m., a little bit later. Hopefully that's a good time for people. Just want to make sure that you know that all the email that you're sending, we are seeing, every one of them. So it's many, of course. And let me just do a quick check to see if anybody wants to make any comments, since we're midway through the hearing, whether or not the board wants to say anything yet tonight. If not, we'll hold until the 7th.
Well, I think I'm going to want to mull over all of the input that we're getting. I don't feel prepared to.
Yeah, to do so. Okay, and I'm sure, Conrad, there are questions that came up in the points that were made that we'll want to respond to again on the 7th. And I think with that, we're going to close this public hearing. Remind you, if you have neighbors who can't come, they can always submit their comments in writing. We really appreciate your input. Thank you. We'll see you on the 7th.